They try to drown me, I can swim upstream so profoundly. I can stay calm in a dire situation. I'm at it every day, no time for a vacation. And I smell blood in the water. Everything I do, yeah, I do it for my daughters. Now I'm gonna shut your lips. It's time for a brand new episode of what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, said it's time for a brand new episode of Talking Jit.
Dude, we made it.
Hello?
We made it.
We did it.
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you now.
At least tell me the audio is good. All right, that was an adventure.
Yeah. It was hey, you made it happen though.
The dawn is on this one. Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to do like a fight prediction for the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, we had some good fights. It was originally supposed to be UFC 295 with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think that, unfortunately, I can't say them being off the card made it any better because sometimes the fight gets canceled and then the card gets better, but hopefully it happens in the future.
Disappointed.
Yeah. Like, I think that.
I guess it's going to be at least a year.
Yeah.
Which makes this interesting because instead of just replacing like Jon Jones with either whatchamacallit, would it be Aspinall or Sergey?
Yeah.
Instead of just replacing them, they made a whole different fight out of it, which I think is kind of smart because if you think about it, if say one of them fought Stipe, like the timing would kind of work out weird for if Jon Jones came back.
Yeah.
Like if the winner of this fight was fighting Stipe, it might be weird. Yeah. So now you still have that fight available.
Well, and I think that these two guys are, I don't know where they fall in the rankings. I can't remember that, but I think they are the number one and number two guy, even above Stipe. And I love Stipe. He's probably one of my favorite heavyweight fighters, all around fighters. I think the UFC did a really bad job of not hyping him up enough. But with that being said, I think that he's past his prime. So that's the one thing I am happy about with this card is that we don't have to see Stipe lose because I don't think he had a super good shot against Jon Jones on this one, just because his prime was like 4 years ago.
I was going to ask you, is Stipe past his prime? Or I Jon Jones?
I don't think. I do think this though. I think this injury could put him over the hill because he's been a pretty healthy fighter most of his career, and so this is a pretty big injury, and it's one that's going to put him out for a long time. So he already had the layoff from being, bulking up and getting himself up to that weight and everything. But now he's got a layoff due to an injury, which is not necessarily, he's not going to be getting more athletic in this period. I don't think, if that makes sense. So that's where, that's where I don't think that that's why I think that maybe after this fight, like he probably had one more fight in him at his prime against Stipe. But now he doesn't even have. Now I think that his next fight, he'll be out of his prime. That's how I see it. So
maybe it'll even out the battlefield a little bit.
Daddy, guess what?
Yeah. Hold on, my son's talking to me. What's up, Mr. Kale? Hold on, buddy. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, probably have to edit that out or something.
I might keep it. But yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, that's the fight that's not happening. I think that unfortunately now that one's just going to be left unanswered on because Stipe is going to be farther out of his prime, and then Jon Jones I think is going to be beginning the being out of his prime phase. So
I got you. I got the list in front of me, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. What's the main event? Is Pereira the main event, or is
Pereira and Yuri Prohaska?
So they switched the main event around too.
Yeah. which makes sense because I think that's going to draw
fight.
more. That's going to draw more people in because I don't think the other two have. They're both really, like potentially future stars, but they haven't reached that level yet, like Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira is. So Pereira. I'm just gonna say it in English, Alex Pereira.
Yeah, dude, it's funny. I've noticed the UFC changes people's names around so much.
Yeah,
like Habib is now Khabib, like Hamzat, Kamzat, Jose Aldo is Jose. It's funny. It's almost like a Mandela effect. Like all of a sudden, switch the pronunciations of these names they've been saying for years. So.
Yeah, well, I try I can speak like a little bit of Spanish, and I've been around enough Brazilians that I can like understand some Portuguese. But when I try to talk it, I'm like, I just sound dumber. So like, I almost make it a joke. Like people who train at like Gracie Baja, they call it Gracie Baja, but I just call it Gracie Barra, and then like Ribeiro Jiu-Jitsu, just call it Ribeiro Jiu-Jitsu, just to like sound super gringo around the Brazilians.
Yeah, like Mackenzie Dern did the opposite.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Like I just,
I'm looking at her name on the card, and I'm like, that's so funny. I don't want to rip. I mean, I don't care, but like
rip on her, dude. She deserves it for doing that.
I can't take it seriously, man. Like I know she's got skills and stuff, but like I just like I was thinking about that before this. Like when
she needs a translator. You go from you go from speaking English fluently with like a West Coast little twist to your voice to like acting like you don't even understand the language. I mean,
she spoke it perfectly.
I'm sure her manager told her to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know. We've got people in the sport. You've probably seen it at your gyms and shit. I've seen people who like all of a sudden start liking Brazilian food or start eating like ketchup on their pizza type shit. Like I don't know, like start trying to pull Brazilian moves and saying like, oh man, well, that's like it's better. It's like you're just trying to fit in.
AJ Agazarm, who's like a local jiu-jitsu guy, is like the biggest one. He's like he was like the acai something. I'm like, yeah, he's a douche. So
what? He was an acai too, bro.
He was the first one who like he made himself the acai king. So you got named acai because your last name's Barry. Mm-hmm. He was like, I'm the acai king. I'm like, dude,
because the acai boys or bowls or whatever.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
He tried to made it, but he like gave it's like giving yourself your own nickname.
I remember, I remember training with him for a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't really have any stories.
Yeah.
Nothing great.
Like, my initial impression, his initial impression, I didn't like him. So I typically take that. I go with my gut on those ones. You only get one of those. And,
I'll get it out of my system before, because I was thinking, I'm like, am I going to be able to talk about her and her fight and not like kind of goof?
Let's talk about that one first.
So with her, Mackenzie Dern versus Jessica Andrade.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Dern, it was funny because that girl who interviews Sean Strickland all the time, Nina.
Yeah.
She posted something on YouTube and it said like, I'm gonna interview Mackenzie. Let me know what questions you have for her. And I clicked the comments, bro, and they were so fucking funny. They're like, you should start interviewing her in English, and by the end of the interview, start speaking Portuguese. Yeah. People had all these funny fucking comments about that. Yeah. And I'm like, it's just something like I'm laughing. It's like I just watched a video of like her from 2008 speaking to now.
Yeah.
It like slowly like now she doesn't even say. I don't know. It's just like,
dude,
what the fuck?
The
like,
most,
why?
Unfortunately, like she's a good fighter and everything, but it's like the most relevant thing about her. Like, like I think that she's up and coming. I think that she's like a good up and coming fighter. And to make my prediction now, I think she's gonna win.
You do? You think she's gonna beat Jessica Andrade?
I do. I think Jessica Andrade is kind of a little bit more like hit or miss with her performances, and I think she's on the backside of her career.
Yeah, she's kind of on a skid, right?
Yeah, but she's still dangerous. I'm not saying that Jessica Andrade can't win, but I predict Mackenzie Dern submits her. Just because Jessica Andrade, I think the way that she's going to beat Mackenzie Dern is landing a big punch, and I think in order for her to give herself that opportunity to land the big punch, she's going to have to open herself up for the takedown. And I think Mackenzie Dern gets it. at least gets it to the ground, because she'll even like pull guard like a Damian Maya style, just to get the jiu-jitsu going. And I think her jiu-jitsu is significantly better than Jessica Andrade's. So
I could see that being exactly right.
I think Mackenzie Dern takes her back and chokes her out. Like that's how I predict her winning. What round? It's probably the second, just because.
Who's the favorite? Go ahead, keep going. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying. I think the second round is going to be when she does it, but I also think she could do it in the first or third. So it's not. I think the first is less likely, because I think that Jessica Andrade will really be like working her game plan. But I think that that's one of the other things about being deep in your career, is that she's probably going to go back to the. I think that the beginning of the fight, she'll be able to stay disciplined, but because she's got like, I don't know how many fights she has, but she has a lot of fights, and she's won the belt and she's fought for the belt, and she's almost one of those fighters who's got a style that is going to be hard to completely break away from, in order to stick to the game plan. So that's why I think it's probably going to be second or third.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like she might be able to stay disciplined in the first, but she's got so many years of training and by the second and third, I think she'll go back to her old ways. And that's not a good style for her against Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, I could see exactly what you're saying. I could also see, and hopefully it's not, but I could see they're like grappling, like nullifying each other, and it just being like a shitty kickboxing match.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't think either one of them are good strikers. And I don't think I do think Jessica Andrade is significantly stronger than Mackenzie Dern, but I don't think you can use. But I think Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu is so much better than hers.
She's gonna have to close the distance for a takedown as well, and that's gonna be
and she has horrible wrestling too. Like she like her wrestling's not good. So that's why I said I could see her pulling guard. I could see her pulling guard in order to get the jiu-jitsu going.
Gotcha.
Kind of like a deep half guard almost, or like a butterfly, and then start working for back takes and stuff like that.
Drop to some shin on shin.
Yeah. An Eminari roll.
And then are we going to get a translator at the end of this fight?
I hope so. Because, like for her sake.
I just fucking can't.
You can't go. You Pandora's out of the box with her, so like she can't put it back.
Yeah,
so.
you gotta just.
You gotta stick with this. Yeah, she gotta die with the fact that she can't speak English.
God, you know what's gonna be fucking weird too, is like Dana White partnering with Bud Light.
Yeah.
Bud Light everywhere. God, this is just getting fucking funky, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is UFC? I'm gonna have to start covering like one championship and stuff. I definitely think that's the move.
Modelos are what you drink when you're watching the fights. Like, and that's my favorite beer anyways. So it's pretty unfortunate that happened.
Dude, it's just like, and it is what it is. Like, Bud Light, I thought like Bud Light didn't mass produce these cans to get the controversy. I guess they just kind of sent them to Dylan Mulvaney, and it's like kind of like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Which I don't get it. I don't get what they have to gain by doing that. And I don't get what they're trying to do. If people think that they're trying to help people support that, then I think that person is out of your mind. If you think Bud Light is going to spend their time and energy doing anything that's not going to make them money, and they just decided like, hey, I'm going to send rainbow cans and tranny stuff to people just because we love trannies. Like, no, there's some sort of motive behind it. But I just think it's funny when Dana White goes back and says like, oh, they're a great company. I stand by like what they're about, because they said they support farmers and shit.
Dana White will, he'll flip his script super fast if he sees profit.
So it's so crazy.
He's not above
Where's the profit? Where is the profit?
I don't know, but I'll say this: like he's a good businessman, and he's like the kind of guy. He's like a Jeff Bezos in a sense. Like I wouldn't bet against Dana's decision. Like I think the slap box, I still don't get it, but maybe in 5 years, slap box is going to be huge. So that's where I kind of like, I guess that's where I say, I'm like, Dana's done a good job up to this point as a businessman. So he might be seeing things differently than I do, and I think he's got a pretty good track record.
Sometimes I really respect Dana, and sometimes I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, but yeah, like I said, that's not.
Well, speaking of Mackenzie Dern, look at Dana White in the early UFC and how he talked and how he looked versus today. Like that's another. They should do a compilation of his voice changing over the years, like like a super high pitched voice and was and like now he's
have a goober.
Yeah, now he sounds like he's been smoking for 20 years.
That's funny. I just don't like. I don't see the risk. Like obviously, Bud Light's gone down. People don't really support it. It's kind of known as like a what it is type of beer.
Yeah.
I don't really care too much about what they did, like one way or another. It's like, okay, they sent some cans to some guy. I don't get the publicity stunt, but it is maybe just to get you talking about it. Negative publicity is publicity.
Oh, that's true.
Maybe I just don't. I'm trying to think of like a money/business standpoint on stuff like that. I'm like, what is the move? What's the play? And I just think it's weird that he did that, especially after being like, oh, I'm an American company. We're open during COVID. We don't play that game over here, yada, yada, yada. And then you go like partner up with like a controversial company and you say that you stand by what they stand for. And I'm like, you act like it's the only company and it's not for money. And you act like it's the only company that is out there supporting good things. Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Like there's some sort of, it just shows like a sleazeball side of him, in my opinion.
It makes you, I think he's probably getting paid a lot of money to be doing what he's doing.
I'm thinking, like, won't that turn off some of your viewers? Like, if people aren't supporting
I think that this is one of those topics that like people aren't willing to die on their shield or die, like take the sword for. So I think that at the end of the day, they're going to pay Dana enough money, and most people are going to let's be honest, this is kind of just like one of those subjects that we all generally roll our eyes over, and then there's like the people who are fanatics on both sides against it. That's how I view this subject, and so it's whatever to me. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess that's probably, if I was looking at it from Dana White's perspective, they paid him a big old chunk of money because they thought that, all right, let's get some like Americans back drinking Budweiser, and who are the most Americans are fight fans. So
I could see what Bud Light's trying to do. I was trying to see,
and I think
it'll probably help.
White,
let's face the music, they ain't going nowhere.
No, for sure. They're big. They're big.
I could see the UFC slowly, especially with like one championship and PFL and like
Bellator just went out. They just went under.
Yeah.
So
Bellator's been kind of shaky for a while.
Yeah, but I think that there's some up and coming Bellator fighters that didn't make the move over to the UFC that are going to be really exciting if the UFC can bring them on. Like Aaron Pico, he's got a super bright future. And then there's a few other ones. He's the one who comes to my mind because I trained with him.
There's a lot of there's a lot of good ones. Yeah, it's cool. And like, let's not forget Ngannou, I think, is like signed with PFL.
Is it PFL? And I think that was a bad move on Ngannou's part. But dude, I mean, who knows?
Everything that guy's touching has been like so doubted, and he's just winning. In
my
opinion.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that where PFL could be and why Bellator went away, I think that it's kind of like Android and Apple. There's only really enough room for like two of them. And PFL just pushed Bellator out. And so now if PFL can find a way to kind of like eke a little closer to the UFC, and I agree, like Ngannou is probably their golden child there. Or if they can pick up some of these guys from Bellator, like the Aaron Picos, and not let them just come over to the UFC, that could be their move. But it's whoever capitalizes on Bellator the best is who's going to like, either UFC is going to super pull away or the PFL might get a little closer.
Yeah.
Right.
So, all right, my bad. We can stay.
You're good. Yeah.
It is cool to kind of cool to go over all that. So these other two, the ones below the Kenzie Dern fight.
Yeah.
We can go over those just real quick. We don't have to.
I think that the
Diego Lopez.
I think that he's gonna win by like Probably submission. So Pat Sabatini, he's more of a wrestler that has submission skills, and he's more of a grappler, I would say. But I think that Diego Lopez is a really, really good grappler.
He seems like a super athletic dude.
Yeah, and he came into the UFC. I don't know if you remember his debut. It was against, I think his name's Imavov. He's one of them Russian guys who was coming up and dominating everyone. And he took the fight on like a 1 week notice and almost won. Like he broke Imavov's leg in half almost. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this guy's super good. In his last fight, he was really impressive. So I think he wins. Probably by submission, just because Pat Sabatini is also a submission, more of a grappler than striker. And I don't think either one of them are spectacular strikers. They're not like chumps. They don't have no striking, but they're definitely both grapple heavy. So.
Gotcha. I kind of agree. For some reason, I couldn't explain why I'm leaning towards Diego as well.
He's got that it factor a little bit. Is what I think with him. Yeah.
And to me, he looked like a super athletic dude.
Yeah.
Then we got Matt Frivola versus Saint. What is this? What did I say?
Benoit Saint Denis.
Yeah, but did I say Matt's name wrong?
No, Matt Frivola, the steamroller.
Okay.
Matt the steamroller Frivola. He's actually a local. He fought out of Gracie, Tampa. So he.
I know.
I trained with him. I trained at Gracie, Tampa South for a little bit. When I was after I went away and came back, and he was an amateur, but he was a super hard worker and was super dedicated to the craft. Him and Billy Quarantillo were both two up and coming fighters, and I think personally, that he's got the potential and the athleticism to make a lot of noise in climbing up the ranks. He's just got to stay fundamentally sound. He's a fighter. If you look at his record and you look at his fights, he will get knocked out. Like he's got a good chin and he can eat punches, but sometimes he holds his chin a little too high. But he also lives and dies by the sword. Like he goes in there and either gets the knockout or gets knocked out. Do I think he can win this one? Absolutely. And I'm not going to vote against him just because I'm a big fan. I think he's a good dude. But I think that this is my prediction. I think he can knock him out and he can defend the takedown. He's a legit black belt, has good wrestling. If he can keep himself fundamentally sound on the feet, he's hard to beat. And that's my prediction. If he gets wild, then it's kind of more of a shootout. So
I've seen him at jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah. He's just
okay.
like you and me. He's super cool. I look at the fighters who are just normal guys who aren't really playing the
badass role when they walk around.
Yeah. It's just like he's a regular guy who happens to be in the top 15 in the UFC now. And I'm always cheering for that guy.
I need to go to Gracie South Tampa and shake some doors down and talk to some people. That'd be nice.
Yeah. There's some. Yeah.
Okay. So then we already did Jessica and Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah. Now
we're up to the co-main event. Sergey versus Tom Aspinall.
Yeah. This is one. Yeah.
Sergey has 6 first-round KOs. Tom Aspinall comes out pretty tough. And he's very athletic. Yeah. Like I noticed that guy's he doesn't move like a heavyweight in my opinion.
He doesn't move like a heavyweight, and I think he's the most well-rounded heavyweight that we got. And I think that if John Jones would have won and he would have stayed in past his prime, he would have been the guy to show up and dethrone John Jones. Here's why. I think because he's got good wrestling, but he also has really good boxing. He's got good slick boxing, good leg kicks, and he's a high-level jiu-jitsu black belt. And he's a true heavyweight. He's been walking around that size since he was a teenager. Like he's a big dude. That's ultimately I think he's extremely well-rounded. I think Sergey's a boxer. Like I think he's got slick boxing. He's got knockout power, which, let's be honest, every heavyweight out there has knockout power. So he's just got to be at a little bit of a higher level. So he's got slick boxing with good knockout power, and he's got a decent takedown defense. But if you remember, I remember this, Alistair Overeem in Sergey's early UFC career. Alistair Overeem was taking him down and dominating him on the ground. And that tells me that was only like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. Even if it was 6 or 7 years ago, I don't think he's closed that gap enough to be able to stop Tom Aspinall from getting a hold of him and taking him down and doing whatever he wants on the ground with him. So that's my prediction there. I think that Tom Aspinall gets a hold of him at some point. We could call it in the first round, because I think it's very possible. Especially when they're not slippery.
This is a very dangerous fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, but Sergey, you cannot count him out of this fight. Just like every other heavyweight, because he's got that slick boxing. He's got that slick boxing and that one-punch knockout power. But I don't think Tom Aspinall he's going to be very calculated. He's got good leg kicks and good enough boxing, and probably a high enough fight IQ to where he doesn't make those mistakes. So
he said Tom Aspinall said he thinks Sergey is like the hardest fight in the heavyweight division.
That's probably accurate.
So, he has a lot of respect for him. So he's probably going in there, like you said, super calculated, super respectful, and patient. And he just seems like a laid back dude every time he walks in the cage.
Yeah.
He just, the look on his face is like he's at home. Like he doesn't have that like warrior face. He doesn't look like he's trying to hype himself up. He looks like he's just like laid back, like doing like, just clocking in. And I like that.
Yeah, he's taking his time. He's a guy who I think has taken his time getting to where he is. He wasn't I remember him saying in interviews, like, I want to take my time to get to the championship, because once I'm there, I want to be able to stay there. Some guys are like, their second fight in the UFC and they get they lost their first one. They get a knockout and they're like, I'm ready for the belt. It's like, to me, he's realistic with who he is. And as a fighter, that's a dangerous asset to have, or attribute, however you want to call it.
Yeah. I don't know why I feel like it's Tom Aspinall's time.
Yeah.
You got to carry me on this card, because I'm like, I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't know. There's so many like, I don't have strong feelings about any of these fights. I'm just going off of like feelings, but Yuri Prohaska versus Alex Pereira. Yuri's coming off that fucking injury. I remember when Dana White was saying it's bad, like it's bad.
Yeah, he like ripped his shoulder off of his whole body or something like that,
which is insane.
Basically, he lost his arm.
And like they're marketing it as like a samurai versus like an Apache.
Dude,
it's kind of a cool way to market it.
It is.
This one's tough because Yuri showed with Glover that like, he's a survivor.
Dude, he's got that like never say die spirit. Like I think that fight with Glover, I've never seen it shown more than that. Like there's the Leon Edwards who land a big head kick, or the Holly Holmes who land a big head kick and get the knockout. No, he weathered the storm, got his face beat in, and then managed to get a rear naked choke submission on arguably the best light heavyweight jiu-jitsu guy there's ever been. Like, I don't know, that says a lot about his fighting spirit. But
I don't think Glover was ever tapped, or was he tapped?
I don't think so. If he was, it was probably early in his career, but Glover's got sick. I mean, he's got disgusting jiu-jitsu. We've seen that. And Glover showed it in that fight, how much better his jiu-jitsu was than Yuri Prohaska's. So to me, that was almost like a blue belt going up against a high-level black belt, and then just like hanging out long enough, like eating the licks, and then showing up and catching them with a rear naked choke. Like that, there's nothing more like warrior spirit about it than that. Like that's impressive. With that being said, I think Alex Pereira knocks him out. Like I don't think you can use kung fu against Alex Pereira and not get your head, like your head knocked off. He's too good of a striker. So that's But, I don't know. Alex Pereira's got the death touch and really technical kickboxing. So that's
it's just so weird to think that like Yuri Prochazka is probably like a more rounded fighter, a more complete fighter.
Yeah.
But Pereira just got so dangerous that like.
Yeah. And he showed against Jan Blachowicz that he's got good takedown defense and that he can get up off the ground, because like Jan Blachowicz has good takedowns and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So he showed his ability to defend takedowns and get up off the ground. So I think that he can just let it fly. I think he can literally just let it fly with Yuri Prochazka. So
is he purple or brown?
He's a brown belt.
Brown.
Yeah.
That was funny. He got his brown belt after Izzy like took him down.
Yeah.
This guy gives him a brown.
It's because he used the guard. He used the guard in his fight. So he showed his instructor that he knows what the closed guard is. So he's like, you get a brown belt.
Oh my God. Like one of the most what is it, like forced brown belts of all time.
Yes. That guy is putting that on his
back.
fighter. He's putting that on his instructor bio on his website. So
oh my gosh. He got did Izzy try to rear naked choke him?
Izzy tried to Izzy was on his everybody made a bigger deal about Izzy taking him down and controlling him. I don't think Izzy did really much of anything when he was on top of him either. Like he didn't show high level.
I think Izzy's purple.
He's a purple, like apparently under Andre Galvao. So that's
you escaped a purple belt choke, so here's a brown belt.
Yeah, exactly.
He's funny, bro. Have you seen him like pranking people?
Yeah, like with the the reaction, the softball reaction.
The softball reaction, and then like I just saw one this morning where he had a golf club in his hand, and he kept telling DC to like turn around, and DC's like, "No, you're gonna hit me with the golf club," and he just kept telling him to turn around, and when DC turned around, he like whiffed the back of DC's head with his hand, like kind of like cupped air, and then DC jumped and turned around. He's like still holding the golf club in his hand, so he's making DC think that he's swinging the golf club at the back of his head, just barely missing it.
That's awesome.
So for someone who's like so stone face killer and shit, I've been watching his prank videos. He was like in the airport and he set up these like little like tubes.
Yeah.
And he kept taking big steps back, like he was going to jump over them. These tubes are like 2.5 feet tall. And he starts like taking huge steps back, and he runs up and he gets close to the tubes, and he slows down. He grabs the tubes and resets them. And then he kept doing it over and over again. Like he had like this whole crowd of people trying to watch him jump over him. Yeah. They're only 2.5 feet tall. And then at the very end of it, he full on sprints at him. And then he bends over and picks him up and just keeps walking.
Dude, I mean, he's still Brazilian. Right? He's still Brazilian, and Brazilians aren't like, I say that's not a culture that takes himself too serious. Like if he was like a Russian doing that kind of stuff, I'd be like, whoa, like that's really surprising.
I thought that was fucking it's
that's
funny
hilarious.
to just see some guy who's got like someone you'd be legitimately scared of walking in alone with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh man, he's like fucking with DC.
He's kind of silly,
making him think he's swinging that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have damn, it's hard for me to make a call on that. Let me see what let me pull up like what I pulled up like the odds, but they keep changing. Yuri is plus 100. Pereira is minus 130.
Yeah, I think that one is, I think that personally Pereira should be a higher betting favorite on this fight card. Just that's my opinion. Like if I don't bet on fights, but if I were to, I would say Pereira is going to be the biggest betting favorite.
That being said, this podcast is brought to you by DraftKings.
Yeah.
Enter promo code UFC. No, I'm just kidding. But throwing the John Anik.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.
Then we already talked about John Jones. That's pretty much the bulk of it, dude.
That's the card. That's the main card. I don't even know anything about the undercard. Usually the undercard, I just watch it and I find out who's fighting on the undercard as it happens. But I'm sure there's some good ones. Typically a card like this, they at least have a really good main event on the undercard. So
Yeah, I was disappointed last one at Tim Elliott. I wanted him to win so bad.
Yeah, dude. It's funny. Samson, for some reason, loves Tim Elliott. Like he's. We watched the Ultimate Fighter that Tim Elliott was on it, and my oldest son, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know who that is, my oldest son is 7. And I think because he heard that Tim Elliott was a college wrestler, he's just like, I like this guy. I'm a huge Tim Elliott fan. I'm like, it's just like kind of a random fighter to be he asks every card, is Tim Elliott on this card? It's Tim Elliott. It's not like most little kids are going to be like, I love Conor McGregor, or they're going to,
right.
They're going to love the stars. No, he picks Tim Elliott.
That's so funny because he's like, and I love Tim Elliott too, and he's got that fun, funky style to watch.
Yeah.
But he's like kind of like a fighter who's always just kind of hung in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as soon as you think he's like on a skid and he's out of his career, he pops out like 2 or 3 crazy, funky wins, and you're like, damn, he's so exciting. And then he like starts making momentum to the top, and then he like kind of fizzles.
He can't quite get that like big win that he needs to fight for the title again. I mean, he did pretty good against Demetrius Johnson in his early rounds, but that's kind of been like, then he just got dominated because he falls back he's a risk-taking fighter. He'll go for the Hail Mary.
Yes.
He's not necessarily looking for the decision win. He's literally trying to beat you the whole fight. And if he doesn't get the knockout or the submission or something else, then he's willing to die. He's kind of like one of those fighters that's okay with that. There's some fighters who are, like if you look at Justin Gaethje's early career, he just wanted to be exciting. And then the minute he decided like, okay, I want to be champ, then he started winning everything. But I'd say he's kind of like that. He's like, I don't care about the title. I just want to try to win the way I want to win. Which you gotta respect it.
I do. I really respect that. It's like my favorite. I know it's not the best for the money or the showtime, but like, or, maybe for the belt wise, if you're looking to be a champ, but if you just enjoy fighting and like to have fun with it, like I respect that a lot. You go in there, you go for the kill, you do athletic shit. You don't just like sit there all tight and hope you get more points at the end. It's always exciting. Like
he could probably sleep better at night than a lot of these guys who eke out decisions. And
yes, right. Like
he knows that he went out there and fought, and come hell or high water, he's in the fight until he's not.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man, this is super cool, super fun. We should definitely do it. We should do this one more often. I don't want to say every fight card, because then I'm going to take the opportunity away from people who are probably better than me at it. But this is super fun.
Yeah, man. But I like having our MMA roots and stuff, and I like bullshitting, and I think it'd be fun. You know what we could also do is have I could pull somebody else on there. We could have a few people at once.
You should have somebody who's going to disagree with me on everything, and then we argue about it. And then pretty soon we'll get a studio and we'll get suits, and and then we should gun for the PFL jobs. That's what we should do.
Yeah, like KFC shit,
Yeah.
Or man. I just got to find our Ariel Helwani.
Yeah. We got to
just
find
some fucking
nerd.
Just some guy who just says stupid shit all the time. I don't know. Yeah. I can't. He's like the Jake Paul.
We cannot have Ariel Helwani. I don't like him. But the other guy who you're going to bring in, who's going to argue with me, is going to argue for Ariel Helwani. So,
who does like that? Who does like him?
I don't know. Somebody who's going to disagree with me.
I don't know.
That's the kind of person who's going to like Ariel Helwani.
He's another one. I'm like, his whole career, every time he blows up or takes another step forward, I'm like, how? Do people just like watching shit they hate?
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, what's the?
I don't ever see people quote him ever. Like, oh well, Ariel Helwani had a good point, or Ariel Helwani said this. Or, I see shit that like Chael Sonnen says. I see all sorts of shit, and I'm like, but I never ever hear anyone like quote, as Ariel Helwani said earlier. Like,
as Ariel Helwani said earlier, said no one ever.
Said no one. We could just make a whole Ariel Helwani hate series.
Yeah. the Ariel Helwani jokes are going to be the new your mom jokes.
Eventually, we'll get to the point where we don't need a guy like Ariel Helwani to debate you. It will be Ariel Helwani debating you.
Yeah, that, and maybe AJ Agazarm's going to try to compete against me in a jiu-jitsu match after this. Doubt it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but
I'd I can instigate like a motherfucker, so
Yeah, I'm instigating it. I'm instigating it now. He's got no shot.
All right, just for the sake of it, we're talking about the Rogan podcast. Let's end on this.
Yeah,
Zuck versus Musk. Who's gonna win?
Zuck. Even though I like Elon Musk way more, but I think that Elon Musk doesn't train any martial arts. So
he's just a fridge. It's gonna lay on.
Yeah, but I don't think he. You know what? Like, there's big guys who you get a hold of them and you're like, you feel like a child, and that's what I think Elon Musk would be. I think that then there's big guys who you get a hold of them, you're like, whoa, like, okay, you're a big guy and you don't know anything, but you're just hard to move. I think he probably feels like a pillow whenever you get a hold of him. So.
Like a giant walrus.
Yeah, giant walrus, but
that's what he was saying on Joe Rogan. He's like, you can't fight a walrus.
Yeah. Elon the Walrus Musk. That rolls off the tongue.
All right, bro.
Okay.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna give you a call here in a minute.
Sounds good, dog. All right. Later.
Peace.
I think the podcast is fucking sick. If you're listening to it and you're like, I don't know if I want to listen to the next episode of this podcast, you're probably a bitch ass. You need to listen to the next episode of this podcast and keep listening to it. Because my friends down here are trying to make shit happen. And we're going to make some shit happen.